Edulight is an online platform where education enthusiasts and innovators across the globe come together to discuss trends and development in the. You can call me Toby, and I'm glad to be a host. As you all know, I've got outstanding individuals with me here today. I'll be discussing education in critical times using COVID-19 as a case study. There's no doubt this will be enlightening as I've got three amazing minds here with me from three different regions of the world. Are you ready? Drum rolls. Yeah, I've got Femi from Nigeria. I've got Wani from Canada and Monica from India. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so Femi Iromini is a consultant at World Bank with expertise across education, agriculture, and financial technology sectors. He founded Lead 360, an education holding with the mission of creating bridges between education and employment. He also has a stint as a CEO at Anti-Graffiti Inc. Now, for our next speaker, Wanike Spiff. Wanike Spiff is a dynamic, innovative, and purpose-driven educator with a keen interest in preparing the next generation of students to thrive in an interconnected world. She's the founder and director of A-Star Learning in Canada, an education firm that provides home tutors both physically and virtually with clients in the USA and Canada. Then to our last but not the least speaker, Monica Kocha. Monica Kocha will best be referred to as a mathemagician and a creator of humane maths, a doctor who cures math phobia. Her approach makes maths not only interesting, but humane. Presently, she's an author, teacher trainer, master trainer, curriculum designer, and she's indeed remarkable. So without further ado, we would like to get this started. So I would start with you, Monica. I like to ask this question most times. You know, you see different people say, some of them will call themselves teachers, some others will call themselves educators. So I'd like to know if there is a difference between a teacher and an educator.
I would say it is, the difference is in the width with which you see the work. A teacher would be interested in teaching the subject. So if I was a maths teacher, if my interest is only how much of maths have I delivered, so my range would be very narrow. Whereas an educator would be interested in the overall education of the students, where subject would be one part of it. So in my opinion, teacher is more like a subset of the educator. The educator would also be thinking about subject, would life skills, empathy, relationships, would be a counselor, teacher, curriculum designer, all of it rolled into one.
Wow.
That's how I see it.
Wow. Thank you very much. So what I got from that is that teachers are actually subsets of educators. Now, to all our audience out there, I know you might have some questions, you might have some comments. Just feel free to drop them at the chat box. We'll all review them and we'll get at your questions. All right. So let's continue. Thank you so much, Monica, for your explanation on that. All right. So I'll move on to you, Wani. It's common to hear this phrase that teaching goes beyond the four walls of the classroom. So how do you think COVID-19 has affected the educational system, both positively and negatively?
Okay, thank you for your question. I think absolutely, teaching definitely does go beyond the four walls of the classroom. And I think COVID-19 has just emphasized that, right? It has brought it to the fore. And so COVID-19 has literally disrupted the educational sphere in different ways. The most common one right now is the remote learning and online learning, right, which is really prevalent in pretty much every part of the world. So in terms of the positive impact, I would say innovation is something that it has really sparked, in the sense that educators are no longer just thinking about the classroom, right? It's no longer just the physical space, but they are being innovative and creative in their approach to teaching the students and ensuring every student learns, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
then
right.
yeah, and I think it has also pushed the government and education ministries, to think beyond the four walls of the classroom. So when they're thinking about funding right now, they're not going to think about just funding for, school supplies and all of that. They're going to put in infrastructure as part of their funding for the year, right? And I would say in terms of negative impact, I would say pressure, because no one saw this coming. No one was
Right.
adequately
Yeah.
prepared for this transition, right? It's
Yeah, sure.
almost
It
as though
happened.
it just dropped on the laps of educators, Ministry of Education and everyone else. So it's really, there's a lot of pressure on educators, and it's been a steep learning curve for everyone in the school ecosystem.
Yeah.
This is not just limited to the teachers, but then the students. They have to learn new technologies. To the parents, some of whom may not necessarily be tech savvy, but right now they would have
Yeah, they
to
have no
learn
choice.
new
That's right.
skills,
That's
right?
right. Thank
They
you
have
very much for
to.
your opinion, Wani. All
Mhm.
right. So, Femi, what do you think? What are the positive and negative effects of COVID-19 as relating to the educational sector?
Okay, thank you very much, Toby. So it's interesting how COVID-19 just happened. It happened to us unprepared, right? And then I'm going to talk from the stance of Africa as a country, right?
Okay.
To a very large extent, in the first layer, the continent is disadvantaged when it comes to education already, right? Now, the next phase is COVID-19 happening, considering the fact that you have very few kids that have access to education. Now, the next phase is we're met unprepared, but we have to face the reality of online learning, of
Okay.
which the major wake-up call, either we're talking about primary school or secondary or tertiary, right? But the next phase is you have to look at the socio-economic factor, the what's it called, the other angle when it comes to teachers' preparedness, right?
Yeah.
And then the other bit is economic inclusion when it comes to what we're facing at the moment. In reality, online education, it's good, is a palliative measure for the COVID-19. But you're talking about Africa, 2 or 1 out of every 3 people don't really have access to internet, right?
Yeah, that
And
is
then
very true.
and the other bit is how many out of those kids can afford to buy data
True.
for
True.
to access internet? How many teachers have access to internet for this?
So that's
So
been
to
a
a
great
very large,
challenge. That's very right.
yeah,
That's very right.
it's a major challenge.
Major
It's a
challenge.
major challenge.
Thank you so much for your opinion, Femi. It's really appreciated. Now, on to you, Monica. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what Vani and Tomide said, that it matches India also, that the positive is the way innovation has sparked. The positive is the way there is these hundreds and hundreds of people who know about online teaching have stood up, and there are free webinars happening day in and day out. So it's a amazing opportunity for teachers to learn as much as they want to learn. But the negative is I don't think there is more than 50% of Indians who have access to the tools of technology which are required to access learning. We've also had lakhs and lakhs of migrant workers who had to walk back home as the lockdown happened so suddenly. So whatever good is happening to a certain percentage of population which has access to technology, and they are also excited about it. But the other side probably will regress because they were dependent on schools, not only for education, they were also dependent for food because there was a free midday meal provided. And with all of that being shut, what happens to them is something that no one really, I don't think anyone even wants to know right now.
Yeah.
But so I would say it's the great disparity between the two sides has become even more. But as far as spark of innovation is concerned, that is absolutely unbelievable. The way, considering this happened so suddenly, still teachers have
Yeah.
taken over the challenge and the way teachers are working. That is
Okay.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to give a deep dive into those questions that we started already.
Sure.
So I would
Hmm.
continue with this question. We stated
Hmm.
the positive and negative effects of COVID-19, the fact that teachers are becoming more innovative and having to use technology, which was unlike how we used to be. We were all used to the normal physical classroom, you come with your notepads and everything. So now, with everything we've said, especially the negative side, what are the ongoing challenges of educators in your country? Now you're going to use your country, Nigeria, Canada, and India. What are the
Hmm.
challenges that educators face? Now the question is in two phases, so I will give you lots of time to express yourself. And what remedies can we perfect to these challenges? All right, so let's start with you, Wadi. Yeah, I want to hear from you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Toby, for this question. Yeah, the challenges are quite inexhaustive, I would say, as there are pros, there are cons as well. But the top four that comes to mind are one, digital literacy, cost, cybersecurity, and early years and students with learning disabilities. So I would go on with digital literacy. As we all mentioned earlier, not everyone is tech savvy. As
Right.
such, it would require, learning new skills in order to keep up, with the learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep up with teaching programs and online learning and the remote learning and all the tools and platforms and everything associated with it. And so that would require, training at all levels. So it's not just the teachers that need the training, but the
Right.
students as well as their parents.
Mm-hmm.
We need to come up with like workshops, and webinars. And that's something we're doing over here in Canada, providing like workshops, webinars and trainings, not just for the students and teachers, but also for their parents so they can support the learning of their children. And then the second thing is cost to the overhead. Prior to this time, it was just
Yeah.
the school building, maybe rent or lease, or if you own
Mm-hmm.
it, that's
Transport
fine. But you
fares,
still pay the
yeah.
mortgage and all alongside with the tools and resources you would use in the physical,
Mm-hmm.
because whether you're there or not, you're still going to pay your utilities, you're still going to pay
Yes, you
your
need to.
electricity, you're still going to pay the rent or the lease. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you're putting on an additional cost that you didn't budget
Right.
for, right? You have to reduce your more. So
More.
there is that imbalance that needs to be looked into. So I
Mm-hmm.
think as a remedy over here
Mm-hmm.
for public schools, it would mean more funding from the
On
government, right?
government,
Which is
right?
they're already giving a lot of money out, to unemployed people. So
Mm-hmm.
an additional strain, to the government, right, to their
Mm-hmm.
budgets and all. And at the same time, for private schools, I think it would mean they would have to come up with creative ways, right, on how to
Mm-hmm.
tackle this. Maybe merge, different classes, together to kind of reduce the cost, of the infrastructure. They just really have to think more about it and come up with creative ways to solve the problem. And then
Yeah.
the third thing is
Other one.
cybersecurity, and this is
All right.
huge. especially here, right?
very.
There's a lot of like phishing
Acts and stuff,
apps and
yeah.
all, and links as well. And these phishing links, could pose, the computer to spyware and
Threats,
malware.
yeah.
And these are things, that needs to be looked into. It's not every educational technology out there that is there to support the learning of students. Some of those are
Right.
out there, to push into students' private information. I believe we've
Right.
all heard of the scenario that occurred with Zoom in Singapore, right? Where people hacked into classroom, and obscene images and nude graphics, were exposed to
That is
underage students.
gross.
So those are things that are prevalent, right, with these remote learning. So
Technology,
I think
yeah.
the main thing here is providing cybersecurity awareness workshops, educating students on proper use, of their technology, of the
So they don't
system, and then of also
misuse technology.
and also of the website, right, and the programs. That way they know what to do. Like, it's not everything that pops up on the screen that they need to click on, so providing that awareness, I think, would be helpful, and it would also posit ways to secure remote learning platforms.
Yeah.
And the last one that I have on here, remember I said there are more, but the last one I have on here is with regards to early years and students with disabilities. It's been really huge, for us to reach out to them. That is a huge challenge for us, because those students require hands-on approach, so having sessions with them via any of these educational platforms do not necessarily meet the need. So what we've been doing so far is just basically psychologists, counselors, and therapists coming together to remodel the curriculum in such a way that we can still that suit their needs, and we can still meet their needs, right, at the same time, not overwhelming them with the demands of the technology. That could mean something like, instead of having a 1-hour class or a 30 minutes class, you make it 15 minutes, right? So you just call them, have the session for 15 minutes, and then you space it out, right? Instead of having like a full long session. So I think in all, there are a lot of challenges that come with this online learning, but at the same time, there are lots of opportunities, for us to learn, lots of opportunities for us to be innovative and creative. So we shouldn't just focus on the challenges. We should also think about, the positives. What are the things we can learn out of this experience? Because I strongly believe this has come to stay.
Really, this is the new normal. Thank you so much, Wani. So let's move on to Femi. Yeah, let's hear your opinion about this. The challenges of educators in your country, Nigeria, and the possible remedies to these challenges.
Thank you very much, Toby. So, pretty much, I'll be talking about 3 points, right? The first one is adaptation. The other one is domestication, and the third one is scalability beyond COVID-19. Now, the classic case study is teachers. Let me start from the teachers, basically, right? So that means whether we're going to talk about online learning, we're going to talk about other form of learning, it has to start with you empowering the teacher for this, right? So to a very large extent, digital literacy, digital empowerment on the part of the teachers in terms of competence, and at the same time in terms of resources will be very important, basically. And then the other bit is we should be able to bring the two hands together. When it comes to you being an educator starts with parents. Kids, they spend a lot of time with parents. Now, the fact that kids are at home at the moment, parents should be empowered to be able to teach the kids.
Yes,
They should be empowered. To a very large extent, it will amplify whatever teachers are teaching online. And then to a very large extent, they can easily help influence the kids to learn.
It would even reduce costs.
Now, on the part of education entrepreneurs, it's a sad story that, parents, they're spending more time taking care of the kids helping you to helping the kids to learn at the moment. So education entrepreneurs will need to be considered when it comes to financial implications, when it comes to learning. Talking about is the digital divide, basically, which is the same case scenario with India. Now, it's very obvious that you have the private school, you have the public school in Nigeria. To a very large extent, kids in primary school, some parents can still afford a smartphone such that the learning can still continue online, right? Now, what about the kids in the rural area, in the village?
That do not have access to this. Yeah.
They don't even have access to it. But we can't keep dwelling on challenges. Now, the next phase is what solution can work, right? Now, a universal technology is USSD, basically. There are technologies that works around you learning through USSD, right? Anywhere, any feature phone can work through USSD.
Yeah.
Now, content, when it comes to learning, can be scaled through USSD, partnering with telcos, partnering with digital content providers. And then the other bit is post-COVID, right? Government, private sector should be able to create a blueprint. COVID has opened up our eyes to the fact that education can happen online, right? But we still need to connect it to the reality of Africa that in terms of scalability, education can happen online, but we still need to adopt blended learning. To a very large extent, some learning can happen within the four walls, but when it comes to scalability, other technologies like smartphone, either you using USSD, access to education in Africa, basically. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, before we move on to Monica, if you have questions or comments, feel free to drop them on the chat box. Once we're done with our questions, we'll read them and the guests will see to your questions. So Monica, on to you. The challenges of educators.
Yeah, thank you. So I see this as a kind of a tipping maybe teachers can accept what they are creating and use. And I see this as something like a tipping point where teachers have also seen the power of technology, what it can bring. The world or the country has seen how indispensable teachers are because everybody is missing. The kids are missing teachers in the classroom. The teachers are missing the classroom. And the edtech entrepreneurs, because now they are coming face to face with teachers through webinars. They can also see that, yes, they need to create products which have teachers as stakeholders in them, and they need to accept what the teachers say. So that is something very fantastic, and I see in future a lot of healthy collaboration can take place. The challenges which the teachers are facing right now is, by and large, teachers in India are women, and women are overworked because women have multiple tasks to do at home. Women would be running the house, and teaching. So that is one difficulty. The other is it happened very quickly. So one day I have chalk and board and textbook, and the next day I have on-screen Zoom, PPT. So like Vani said, there is such a huge gap in the learning, and there was not enough time for teachers because a lot of schools just did a one-day Zoom training. Some schools, very few schools, saw it coming and they switched very gradually and in a healthy way to online teaching. Now, even after shifting, having interacted with few teachers and few school heads, I realized that some schools have left teachers on their own. So it's up to the teachers to take initiative to learn something and use the tools in the teaching. Whereas some school heads are very actively involved and they're picking the right seminars, all the department or all the school teachers, they get together and watch it and learn. So the level of growth that is happening in different schools is very different. Then, like Vani said, there is also costing. Salaries are not coming. School fees have reduced. The government has given option to parents to pay, not to pay. Some parents, some schools haven't received the fee from about 70-80% of the parents, and then they are in a dilemma: how do we pay the teachers? Some parents also went to court because they did not want to pay any fee at all. But of course, the court refused that and said that since the teachers are working, they need to be paid, even if it is lesser. So there is
Yeah, true.
a lot of disturbance in that way. This is a big disruptor. Then there are also homes where children are not happy, to the extreme where children are maybe abused, and suddenly the children don't have that safe space which the school was for them. So with all of these challenging coming, but I do see things moving forward. I do see, like the rest of the speakers said, that we can't dwell so much on challenges but
On
to
the
see the
challenges.
outcomes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So the government has created a whole channel on television. So even if the children, the masses don't have access to smartphone or internet, I think television has a huge presence in India, and the government has created a channel completely where educational videos are running. There is a host of free videos which have come on YouTube, which the children can learn on their own, and if parents get involved, or if kids can learn on their own also. The government could perhaps turn education also into essential services. And if there can be an effort, I think it will have to be a collaborative effort between government, entrepreneurs, parents, teachers, everybody, where tools of technology can reach far and wide. I would say this has a possibility of taking education to another level,
Yes.
and we need to take that as a positive attitude. And but I see this completely as a tipping point, and I do hope that the new normal actually becomes normal in the
Yeah.
coming year, so that it's not just having classrooms which are blended, but why not have schools all 5 or 6 days of the week? Why not have schools few days for group projects, for collaborative work, for camping, and maybe the teaching through technology can happen with students at home. So there is a
Yeah.
lot of scope for education to change,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very excited to see what kind of new models will come up in different parts of the world as we move forward, in different states in India as we move forward.
Wow, that was indeed
Thank
enlightening,
you.
Monica. Thank you so much. I'm sure you all are having an amazing time already. If you have questions, like I said earlier, feel free to drop them. Your comments, drop them also. First of other events that we'll be having. So we'll move on to our next question. We've already spoken a lot about online education and stuff like it is the key right now. It is the new normal. So do you think online education is effective using COVID-19 as a case study? Like for over a month now, most schools have been online. What is the effective rate compared to physical education? Let's start with you, Wani.
Okay. Yeah, those were very amazing perspectives, Monica and Femi. I really did learn, quite a lot from
Thank
there.
you.
And like Monica is talking about being excited and looking forward to educational models of the future, right? I'm also looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to that because I believe that the majority of education should actually take place outside the classroom. I believe
Right.
in interdisciplinary approach to education. So
Teacher, I want to
I'm
bath also.
actually quite excited, to
I want
seeing
to bath
how
also.
the educational space would reform.
The first one
So
to
back
bath
to your
outside. It starts by
question,
11.
Toby, regarding the
I'm sorry, I want
effectiveness
to
of.
cut you. I want to cut you, Wani. Please,
Okay.
can we all mute our mics? If you're not talking, can you mute your mics? Thank you very much. Please go ahead, Wani.
Okay, yeah. So speaking about the
That's
effectiveness
not no bathroom. No.
of online education, it's one that I think depends on the educator, like the entire education ecosystem, which includes like the educator, the student, the curriculum, which includes like the content, the instructional strategy, alongside the platform that is being utilized. All of these have to be assessed in order for us to measure the effectiveness. In Canada, online learning is not new. It's something that has been in existence. There are some K-12 institutions that have completely run online prior to COVID-19, right? And then most schools were already imbibing flipped classrooms, right? Where students learn on their own and then they come to the classroom and then the teacher and the students the teacher just basically facilitates the knowledge of the students. So it's not as
Become
though
more independent.
it's not as though the teacher
It is
is just
new.
trying to fill in, the knowledge into the student, but they are basically co-creating the knowledge, right? So this is something, that has been in existence, but it has not been the case for all schools. It has just been for just a select few. So with the COVID-19 forcing literally almost all the schools here in Canada to go online, there are some things I've actually noticed, and this is also personal to my own educational services company. Like we mentioned earlier, there's a tutoring arm to what I do. So for the tutoring arm, I was just having a conversation, over the weekend. It was more like a strategy meeting with my team. And we were just basically evaluating the effectiveness of our tutoring programs. And some of the things we actually highlighted, mind you, this is here in Canada, we all have access to internet. Almost every student has a Chromebook, given to them by the government, so we have the infrastructure, to support
So
whatever
it's
technology that is
easier.
required. Yeah. So some of the things we noticed here was that there was increased focus on the students. Like we noticed the students were more focused, they were less disruptive and distracted in class. And on the educators' part, we also noticed that there was like a 20%, we were 20%, we were able to cover 20% more of the content would cover within a given period of time. So for that, I believe that is some level of effectiveness, right?
Yeah,
And another
right.
thing there was the quick access to digitized lesson plans, and digitized supplementary learning programs. For example, you're teaching a child about earthquakes and all of that. Right away, you're able to go on YouTube, to Nat Geo and pull up that resource immediately, to play it for the child. Whereas if you're in the classroom, before you move from your seats to probably turn on the desktop and the projector, that could take a while, right? So, but when you're right there, just you and the students online, we noticed that it was more effective for us in that regard. And another thing as well that we noticed was that it was more flexible for the teacher. Like they were not under pressure to perform. And that was the same thing for the students as well. There is less pressure on the side of the student. Students are more relaxed because they're in the comfort of their home, right? And then for educators as well, they are more relaxed because no administrator is kind of like snooping, over your neck, trying to figure out what you're doing. So you're able to bring, your best foot forward. But at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, there are still some other drawbacks, right? How do you effectively tutor students in their early years and students with learning disabilities? This is something I believe the education sector, not just the education sector, but I believe educators, alongside ed tech companies, parents, counselors, psychologists, everyone needs to come together, to develop a program, a comprehensive program that would ensure that these students learn as well. So in essence, the effectiveness would depend greatly on the educator, the student, the content that is being taught, because there are some contents that are easier or subjects that are easier to teach via online than others, right?
Yeah.
For example, how do you teach phys ed online? And that is physical education. How do you teach that online? Right? And then
You can't
subjects
even
like math and
monitor.
science, you can teach those online effectively, right? So the subject matters. And then we also need to be aware of the platform that is being utilized, because there are so many platforms, right? And I don't know if some of you were on our meeting last week, I did talk about the fact that you need to identify the need before the software, right? Because the
Yes.
technology or software or program or whatever you're using should match your pedagogical practice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Wani.
Thank you.
Okay. So Femi, what do you think? Is online education effective in Nigeria?
Um, so I would say it has not been totally effective because I've had to engage with a couple of educators and then kids that find
Mm-hmm.
to a very large extent for kids that are in the urban area that the parents they have a good economic status.
Easier.
It's been a bit effective,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still concerned about a lot of
Those
kids
in
that
the
are
rural.
left behind. That are left behind. Now, to a very large extent, government and some other private sector, they've been able to leverage on platforms that are readily accessible, like TV station, radio station, and all. But still, when you want to turn on the TV, how many out of these kids have power?
Mm-hmm.
How many out of them have cable subscription, right? So I feel for Nigeria, it's going to be a gradual process,
Yes.
right? Because already in terms of a curriculum design, our learning model, we're far behind
Yeah,
already,
that's right.
right? So the next phase is how do we even design learning? How do we design our curriculum such that it's fit for online learning? It's fit for flipped classroom, another future form of learning, basically. And that will come when the government is deliberate enough and then being able to be not sentimental when it comes to the political will around it, to be able to empower teachers and then put in stringent policies around education. The other bit is chances are very high that we might not be able to close, but how can we still carry the kids at the bottom of the pyramid along, right?
Yeah.
Being able to being able to give them access. But post
Sorry, I would like to cut you, Femi. Femi, I'll cut you a bit. Hello, everyone. Please, can we mute our mics if you're not talking? Like, if it's only the guest mic that should be on right now to avoid all distractions. We understand if you have comments, your questions, just drop them on the chat box. You can drop your email as well. Thank you very much. Femi, I'm sorry for that. Continue, please.
No, it's fine. So looking at post-COVID, so you have to be able to apply whichever solution we're going to adopt, both separately for private and then for public school, right? For private, it's a lot easier for schools to be able to, for instance, when Wani was talking about Canada, every kid, they have access to Chromebook, right? So how many kids in Nigeria have access to Chromebook? So in a way, private schools that can have that luxury, they can actually adopt it. The other bit is the ones that cannot adopt it, how do we carry them along? So I feel there should be more spent, which goes back to our budget allocation for education, basically. With the budget we have for education in Nigeria, being able to transition kids for online learning or even blended learning is not totally visible. It's not visible in the nearest time. So I feel it's still going to be a consolidated effort through organizations like Teachtact, being able to empower teachers to be able to adapt that and being able to design programs that can help parents to be able to be a major contributor to that, and also being able to engage private sector to be able to take up some of the burden of the bottom of the pyramid. The fact that they have access to the feature phone that can run on USSD, I think we should channel more of our content for them through SMSs and the USSD-based learning.
Yeah,
The
since
same way
everyone
it's been
has
adopted.
access to that.
Yeah. So the same way it's been adopted in East Africa, that will be the first step. And chances are very high that if they have access to internet, that will go a very long way. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Monica, what do you
Yeah,
think in India has
yeah,
online
thank you.
education been effective?
I would say it's very early to say that, considering the size of India and so many different types of schools. So, in a certain kind of schools which are which where already the ecosystem for it is ready, it is extremely effective, and as an independent model as well as a blended model. Then there are schools where teachers are still struggling, and then there are absolutely, like Femi said, bottom of the pyramid, where we don't even know what those kids are doing right now. Although the government is making its efforts through television, through YouTube, but I don't know when we will come to know the effect of these efforts on them. Even in the urban setup, I find that there are disparity in the answers which I'm getting from teachers. So some schools they are very effective, the kids are very focused, the content is being delivered, it's fast. Whereas some schools where the teachers are using a medium, let's say such as Zoom, but by and large what they are doing is creating PowerPoints and running. So they are not absolutely effectively aware of the tech tools. The other is with the constant onslaught of skill building webinars that's happening, that a lot of teachers have also become overexposed, and but the skills needed to turn that exposure into a clear cut lesson, which is contextualized, where the teachers can understand, okay, here I can use this medium, or here I can use this medium, like Vani said. That is somewhere they are still struggling. All in all, I would say it's too early to say what is the effect of online education. In certain sectors, it's very effective, certain sectors, it's medium, and certain sectors are completely blacked out. They don't have a reach because they don't have the tools, they don't even have telephone towers, they don't have a network, or they don't have laptops or other medium, or even phones to speak of. And then let's say there are some families where there are 4 children and one phone, so the children have to actually decide who is going to study when. So it's a very mixed response considering the diversity of India. And I would say let's wait and watch and see the effect of online teaching in the coming months.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We can see the diversity in our different regions. You kind of it's something they're quite used to, so it's more like a progression for them. But for us in Nigeria, right, it's quite difficult because we're already used to this rigid. The teacher comes to the classroom with a notebook, most likely with a cane, and everybody is tense and uptight. But we can say that education is beginning to change. And absolutely, let me just tell you, we all know this, that this is already the new normal. So we all have to brace up. Thank you very much. I'm so glad I have interesting and enlightening posts as such. So we'll move on to somewhat like our last question. It's an offshoot of the online education. So what is the future? Femi already started up with this conversation already. So what's the future of online teaching post-COVID? Like we say that this is going to continue, but to what extent? Do you see us going back to how physical or virtual learning is? Or do you think we are going to remain, like from now henceforth, it's just going to be online teaching and all? So let's start with you, Mani. So let's hear from you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Toby, for the question. Yeah, in terms of the future for online education, I think it's something that depends, right? It depends regionally, and I'm going to speak for Canada at the moment. Yeah, in terms of Canada, I think that would kind of progress towards completely online. But for the interim, I'm thinking there would be a blend. It would be a blended format where it would be like maybe 2 days in school and then 3 days at home online, you know, something along those lines. As I mentioned earlier, online classes have already been in existence. Some schools run these schools. So I think with this COVID, everybody understanding and knowing that they can learn online, I think hearts are more warmed up to it, right? Because I believe some school administrators in the past were a bit hesitant to push in this. And same with parents as well, right? Some parents would have been like, oh no, I don't want an online platform for my child. But with COVID has taught us as an education system that learning can take place online. So I believe it's going to be the new norm, but I feel there's going to be some sort of transition. I don't believe come September, all students are going to be online. No, I wouldn't think that. I feel like some schools are going to move online, while some schools will still have their chalk and talk model, and then they transition gradually through blended and flipped classroom, and then maybe eventually everything goes online. But I actually wouldn't want everything to go online. I would prefer like a blend of both, right? An online platform and then the in-class experience. And the reason why I'm saying that is because there's something that happens when you're physically interacting with people, especially for children. That is how they learn social skills, right? That is how they learn, communication skills. They are building how to listen. They are building how to communicate assertively. Those are skills you cannot effectively teach online. So I believe having those virtual classes would help with that. And even with projects, right? I know for adults, it's really easy, for us to completely work on a project remotely. Like there are some of my team members that are not here, right? I'm able to work with them remotely. But then for children, I believe it's going to be a bit challenging, for them to work on projects, because I know that the education trend, for the future is project-based learning, right? So for those projects, there has to be that hands-on component, which I don't believe the online platform would provide. So I think moving on, there will be like a transition process where, some schools will be fully online, some would have the blended and flipped classroom, and some would kind of have like a mix of both, like maybe 50-50 or 60-40 kind of blend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have a comment here from Peter. It says, I think it would be too early to score the online learning in Nigeria in this short time, but I'm sure the nearest future will be fine. So this will move on to you, Femi, the future of online teaching post-COVID in Nigeria.
So for Nigeria, basically, so we're praying that life will go back to normal, right?
Yeah.
And now the fact that we have COVID, it's a wake-up call for both educators in the private and the public sector, right? Mm-hmm. So for the private sector, where the parents can still afford basic smartphone, access to internet, to a very large extent, it's a wake-up for them to be able to consider blended learning, right? Yeah. And for them. When it comes to you running education on site, you have to factor in things around the generator, logistics, and every other thing. But what if you consider 3 times a day or 2 times a day, the other days online, and then being able to spend less time with the teachers, being able to work on projects actively, to a very large extent. Right. It makes them more independent. It makes them develop their problem solving and critical thinking skills very well. Now, that applies to the primary school. When it comes to tertiary education in Nigeria, it's obvious that we have the rote learning system where the lecturer, they're willing to come to the class and still repeat the same notebook they're using in 1988.
Right.
And when you think about tertiary education in Nigeria, one of the major challenges, the number of seats we have are very limited. Few students are able to take SSE and not able to get into the university. Now, this is a wake-up call for even private universities that I was expecting they would do it better, to be able to consider blended learning, such that they can accommodate more kids into the university, such that they can be able to train or educate kids for this economy, basically. And for the public education, I feel it should be a gradual process for government to be able to adopt still blended learning. It will save us a lot of but it will save us a lot of costs when it comes to budgeting. And then when it comes to the outcomes for learning, it will be a lot easier. And with that, we should be able to empower our teachers to be able to adapt to this. And more importantly, be deliberate about the quality of talent we're recruiting into the education system, right?
Yeah.
It makes us to be able to rethink a lot of things. But I feel for Nigeria, it's going to be a gradual process with different model being adopted by different sector, being adopted by different economic strata or social strata. But all in all, online education is here to stay. But the advice to educators is, do you want to make yourself relevant for this new normal, right?
Yeah.
It's a question we need to be able to answer for ourselves. And to a very large extent, I feel adopting blended learning, project-based learning will help us a lot to develop the right talent for the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a comment here that says, I also believe if educators are open we would achieve more. I also feel it has created lots of opportunities for education entrepreneurs who can leverage on the need for quality content. It would also create a healthy competition with the learners benefiting from improved and quality content. Thank you very much, Peter, for that comment. Then there's another one here that says the biggest challenge going forward is probably going to be the flexibility of teachers. A good number of teachers in Nigeria are very rigid when it comes to change. Thank you for your comments, Olubenga. We have another one here from Sydney. Sydney says, I believe that education post-COVID-19 in Nigeria would be a sort of a revolution. Call it an educational revolution, if you may. But it would increase knowledge, utility, and effectiveness of technology from all angles. Teacher, parents, and students, but finally, everyone will be forced to embrace technology and apply it to education. This is really, really brilliant. So on to you, Monica. What do you think is the future of online education?
Thank you. I think online education has been trying to knock on the doors of classrooms for a long time. And I think this is COVID-19 has given that opening. And now it has not only entered, it has entered nice and proper. I see change happening in future at multiple levels. We have got children who are now slowly turning into independent learners. We have teachers who have suddenly realized how blending so many tech tools improve their classes and how teaching a really interesting work instead of something that you do because you don't have anything else to do. We have tech companies which have realized finally that the tools that they are creating can and are making a difference. And I think at the government level, as our Prime Minister said some time back, that his learning from this whole experience is that India has to stand on its own feet. At the government level, probably the way Femi described, they would come up with a model to bring the bottom of the pyramid also closer and to try and create the country where everybody has access to internet and everybody has access to a simple phone or a simple tool by which to access internet. So I see change happening at multiple levels in the sense, as one of the comments said, that the teachers need, if educators are open, this can be the beginning of the education revolution that we have been waiting for a long time. And definitely, I agree with the other speakers that online education is absolutely here to stay in multiple ways. And I forgot parents. I think parents, a lot of parents, as some of my friends said, that they are genuinely looking towards homeschooling their children. I think a certain section of parents would take, because they have suddenly realized that between them and the tech tools available and the examinations available which can be taken privately, they can homeschool the children. So it would be a change everywhere. from the government side to try and lift up the bottom of the pyramid. The children are turning into independent learners. Parents are realizing the importance of teachers, but they're also realizing how important it is when the kids are at home and homeschooling is possible. And the teachers are suddenly equipped with the tools for teaching, which can easily take them away from the chalkboard and the textbook model that they had. I would say, considering India and the 40 to 50 languages that we speak over here, it would be useful to have state-wise models. Maybe the government can give a certain greater flexibility and independence to the state governments to decide, depending on the context of each state, what model would be the best. So certain states where something like the metropolitan cities exist can have the model where blended learning can work very well. Probably there will be a very small section of very elite schools that may even try turning blended, in the sense kids come 2 3 days and the rest of the days they work from home online, and they come only for the collaborative learning part of the work, whether as projects or problem solving or camping or anything else. Whereas certain states can see that, okay, here we need a certain blended model, a very small section can afford the tools, but a larger part of our state is still at the bottom of the pyramid. So this is certainly a time where I like what Femi said, that we should be looking forward to multiple models coming up, which are very contextual. And definitely, I see a revolution coming forward if this is taken properly. And I think, as a lot of educators are here saying, when we go back to the classroom, I think educators should now stop saying that when we go back to the classroom, but should see more in terms of, let's see what the future has, because we may not go back to the classrooms
The
for all
classroom,
we.
yeah.
Yeah,
You are already in
absolutely.
the classroom online, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you
So
very much, Monica.
thank you.
All right. So we have a question here. I would direct this question to Wani, since she's more on the tech side. This question, it's more like a subtle question and a comment. It says, I wish to know what kind of appeal would flourish if schools had to meet with the government on technological aids that would benefit over 90% or majority of learners across ages in schools this COVID-19 session. So I think it's probably asking about technological aids that we can push out to the government as an appeal to aid learning.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what is the, yeah, if I got you right, because I didn't really hear some part of it.
Okay,
So
let
do
me
you
read
want to
through
take that
again.
again?
Yeah, sure. So his comment slash question says, I wish to know what kind of appeal would flourish if schools had to meet with the government on technological aids that would benefit over 90%, that is the majority of learners across ages in schools this COVID-19 season. I think he has to talk about technological aids ranging from different classes and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so I think the first thing there is to define the technological aid that they would need, right? Is it in terms of the government funding them, or does it mean, the government subsidizing data or like cyber infrastructure for them to use the technology? So we need to define that. And after defining that, I think schools need to come together. Like if they're going to appeal to the government or anything, we need that united front. I know in Nigeria, like there is that competition of my school versus your school. My school is better than yours. And there is that tension and friction. But I feel it's time for us to put all of that aside. It's time, for teachers, school leaders, administrators, everyone, in the school ecosystem to come together as a united front, come up with, what you want the government, to do for you. Do you want them to subsidize data? Like I heard in the news about, several telecommunication partners, providing, certain funds, to the government. Those funds could actually be diverted to providing free data, for students or for the teachers, So I believe that unity would be needed in order for the government to listen. But then again, I really don't know how much the government responds to protests like this. So
Right.
I think that's another thing to look into. But you never know until you try, right? It's just about mobilizing schools. Everybody come together, let's write this, let's sign this bill, let's pass it on to the senators, and see the outcome of it. But I know it can be quite challenging in a place like Nigeria, right? Which is really bureaucratic, and there's a lot of wetting of palms before anything gets to the top.
Right. Somebody said something in the comments that really got me intrigued. Person said this is education revolution. So this is something that we're all going to fight to make happen. Now here is a concern and a question here. I think I'll direct this to either Monica or Femi. Okay. So this person goes, on the virtual learning, the cost implication is on the I side, and it is difficult to be maintained. However, schools will make adjustments thereby. Sorry, I need to read through this again. Sorry. On the virtual learning, the cost implication is on the I side to be maintained. However, schools will make adjustments thereby teachers. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to paraphrase this. Thereby, teachers losing their jobs, if not technologically inclined. Government needs to come up with policy on the issue. Parents don't want to pay for online learning. Don't you think it's high time for schools to collaborate together to reduce the tension of the teachers? Oh, so what I think this person is saying is that most times some teachers, I think this is from a Nigerian perspective, teachers are not all that technologically inclined. So it's quite difficult for them, and parents do not want to pay more for online learning. This is just a concern. This is just a concern. So if you have questions, you can go ahead to drop them on the chat box. If we can't respond to them now, you drop your email address also. We'll always reach out to you whenever we have events like this. So before we leave, I'd like to hear your final words, your advice to fellow educators. Monica, let me start with you this time. What advice do you have to fellow educators? What are your last words, basically?
I would say this is an incredible opportunity to learn because of the number of people who are standing up and are ready to teach teachers on daily basis how to use Google Classroom, how to use Zoom, how to have classroom discussions online, how to do projects online. I would say instead of focusing on what happens when we go back, take this time as how much skills can I build? How much can I learn how to flip the classrooms? And considering most of the platforms today are free for the teachers to use, it would be nice to focus on completely on the present and learn as much as one can. And instead of thinking of this will happen when we go back, think of probably we are never going back. We are going forward and doing something completely different in the field of education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Femi, yeah, what are your last words?
Okay, it's simple. When we started the interview, we talked about the difference between being a teacher and an educator, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think you're a teacher at the moment, I feel you should rethink your thoughts, the thoughts about your career. I feel more teachers should transition to being an educator, whereby they're more intentional about the kids' development, and more importantly, you being able to empower yourself to be able to adapt to the new normal, right? And then in the sense of that, that means no matter how much you're talking about the cost of online virtual learning being expensive, to a very large extent, short term is expensive, but on the long term, it helps scalability. So that means there will be need for curriculum developers, there will be need for instructional designers, there will be need for the right clusters of talents when it comes to educational development ecosystem, right? So that means as an educator, you'll be able to position yourself for all those opportunities. And as a teacher, a lot of self-learning will be very, very important, especially for Africa, where teachers don't really have access to resources.
Right.
To a very large extent, most of the types of learning, most of the resources you need, they're out there. It's just the motivation to be better, to not just be a Nigerian teacher, but to be able to
Push
compete
for more.
globally as an educator, basically. But reality is, the normal will never be normal again. So let's see how we can adapt to the new normal, and then see how we can transition that into the future.
Thank you very much. So we have another comment here that says, the future is one that holds a lot of promise, but we all have to work on our hands. For teachers, please forget about how long you have taught and begin to brainstorm on how the future, which is here already, will be. Governments in Nigeria might take a century to come alive, so do not wait. Do what you can where you are with what you have. This is sweet. I love this. Thank you, Olubenga, for your comment. Then we have another one here. Thank you all very much for this discussion. I learned and I'm looking forward to being in this field with such peers. Thank you, Kana. All right, so Wani, your last words.
Okay. Wow, it's really been a pleasure being here, learning so much from the comment section and even from my fellow speakers. It's incredibly been an amazing time here. So thank you so much for your time. If I would leave educators with anything, I would say that the world is ever changing. The world is ever changing. If it's not COVID, it's going to be something else. If it's not something else, it will be something else, something else, right? You know, so we have to be flexible in our approach. And in being flexible, that means we need to develop capacity. And before we can develop capacity, we need to know our why. I know sometimes, you know, some teachers are thrown into this teaching job just because they couldn't find anything in their field. But I'd want you to really look within, like, why am I an educator? Why am I a teacher? Really look within. And if education is not the route for you, you can explore other options, because we are our utmost with excellence. We need to approach this with the best of ourselves. And that means looking within ourselves and really finding the purpose. Like these students we're preparing them for a future we do not even know what it would look like. And so we have to be intentional in our approach in dealing with these students. And so ask yourself the why, like, why am I a teacher? And what kind of teacher do I want to be? You know, do I just want to be a regular teacher, or do I want to be a phenomenal teacher? And if you want to be a phenomenal teacher, what does it take for you to become a phenomenal teacher? Google is your friend. YouTube Academy is your friend. Go on there. There are so many resources available. Google, even in terms of technological platforms to use. You can Google an apples to apples comparison of online learning platforms. They're out there. You can see, you know, the different services each of them provide, and you can then select the one that suits your needs. You have to learn. What are the things, you know, that make a phenomenal and innovative teacher? If it's communication skills, start developing those communication skills, because as far as I'm concerned, being an educator involves a lot of communication, and relationship building is like the #1 bedrock upon which learning takes place. So you need to learn how to sustain and develop a relationship, even with these young ones. You're developing relationship with the students, you're developing relationships with their parents, even with the administrators of the school and school leaders, right? And I think overall, you just need to assess yourself. What do you really want out of this whole teaching experience, and then develop yourself. And then lastly, I almost forgot that, is feel free to ask for help. We are not above learning. We are all learning. So if you need help with anything, feel free to reach out, you know, to other teachers. And I think the thing we should take out of this whole COVID experience is the art of collaboration. It is not about competition. The focus is the students. Our goal is to ensure the students are prepared to be globally competent, because that's the goal. Because they are going into a world where they'll be competing for jobs with people in developed countries and other parts of the world. So you need to put that at the back of your mind and ensure that you are working with those students at the same time, developing your skills. You're working with other teachers as well. And at the same time, you're asking for help. You can ask for help, on Google, and even with the Teachtact team, right? Like the WhatsApp group is so huge. There are a lot of educators there. An area that may be a challenge to you may just be a walkover for someone else. So feel free to ask for help, develop yourself, and ask yourself why you want to be an educator and develop yourself in that area. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I am super excited, and I'm sure you all are. Feel free to drop, if it's a word, just an adjective of how much you feel about this, your expression, your gratitude. Just drop them in the comment section below. Then you can also drop your email address in case if you want to reach out to anybody. We also have a WhatsApp group you can relate with our staff. I'm sure that this was mind-blowing and enlightening for me as well, as much as everyone else. Thank you so much for your time, Wani. Thank you so much for your time, Femi. Thank you so much for your time, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
But before we leave, let me tell you a little bit about Teachtact, the organizers of the show. Teachtact is an organization based in Nigeria whose vision is to channel quality basic and secondary education to all social strata in developing nations. Our missions are to be the best Pan-African education institute in Africa in teachers' recruitment and training, school consultation, and education policy formation. Also, to be the foremost global company in harnessing empirical data to trace and resolve cases of students' underperformance at all levels. Our services include teachers' training on different aspects, including teachers' technique, classroom management, training of teachers on use of technology tools in the classroom, recruitment of teachers and other key staff for schools, technology solution for schools, including consultancy on school improvement plan. We also have a growing educators community. If you would like to be a part of this great community, simply contact us on the numbers on the screen. I could also read them out to you: 070-622-80364, 080-272-09572. You can take a screenshot as well if that would be easier for you. You could also send us an email at hello. Okay, let me take that again. You can also send us an email, hello@teachtact.com. Then we'll definitely reach out to you. Thank you so much for this. We really, really do appreciate your effort. Thank you, our guests. Thank you, our listeners. We hope to see you in our next edition. Till then, cheers.
Thank you so much for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
It was nice having you. Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Let's see our faces.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank
Job well
you.
done.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for everything. We really do
Thumbs
appreciate
up,
it.
guys.
Awesome having you here.
Au revoir.
Bye. And feel free to tell your friends about this, other educators.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for this. I really
Pastor
like it.
host.
Yeah, welcome.